Hello and welcome to the Mazal class. I am your host, as always, Rabbi David Katz. And we are, as I said, in the Mazal class, cruising for a bruising. Shnei Gedere Mazal, two types or levels or distinctions of Mazal type 1. Yesh Adam Shahani's Vashir's Ein Ra Kalim Biavoidis Hashem. V'yesh Adam Shahani's Vashir's Ein Miatzmem Tachlisoi. There are guys out there who are poor and rich, and these are only vessels to serve the Lord. And there's a man out there that he is poor or rich. That this may be your kind of like your purpose, right? It's almost like, imagine, have you ever heard of Donald Trump? Any of you guys ever hear of Donald Trump? So Trump has a lot of money, right? So his entire life in this world is defined by wealth. Is that correct? So then, in a little fictitious way of talking here, you can imagine in another lifetime that Hashem may send Donald Trump back poor, just to be poor. Can you imagine that? I mean, I'm sure you can, right? Just stop. He comes back. Okay, look, you were rich and you did this and you did that. Now you're just poor for the sake of being poor. And you can see why that would be important, correct? You are going to come back to just be poor. No need to even investigate further. Okay. Ksav ha-mechtav Miliyahu b'chelik daled kuntres ha-bechira chelik daled b'chira Mazal. Pesher davar hu yesh adam asher kelgo hu einiyam asoya megiloi go to Hashem Yisborach. V'aniyas v'shiras v'chein shar ha-nesivis v'mitzavim heim rakim v'davar zeh klum and sayim v'zoyakach. There's a guy out there that his portion is the Inyan, Mesuyim, Begiloi Kavod Hashem Yisborach. That whatever your portion is, it's an Inyan Mesuyim. It's like a complete complex thing that is for the revelation of the glory of God. So it's complex. You know why it's complex? That way you can't share it with anybody else. That way it's personalized for you. Right? Justin Becker, if I were to walk in your house right now, would I really understand what's going on? No, I would not understand what's going on. But you guys understand in your complexities, right? So whatever that thing is that you have, and it's a complex thing, it's a whole thing. It's like, how many of you have ever heard of tennis? Any of you guys ever hear of tennis? Imagine if we were to interview Roger Federer, type 1. Right? So I'm sure if he were to describe tennis to you, his game, it would be very complicated, wouldn't it? Very complicated how he views tennis. And that's what God gave him to glorify God. Now, every single one of you are Roger Federer in your own way, type 1. And poor and rich and all the other paths and realities are only vessels for this thing, which is to say they are mediums for this. So there's something called the Roger Federer program, type 1. every one of you, whether it's poor or rich, our Roger Federer complex thing program, which serves to glorify God, type 1. And there's a guy that his poor or rich state, it itself is the revelation. If Donald Trump were to be reincarnated poor, would that be a glorification of God? It itself? Yes. Those whose portion is the study of Torah, all who fulfill the Torah in poor, his end will be to fulfill it in rich. And the opposite is also true. If you complete your job, it's feasible to give to him more kalim in order that he should be able to continue in his service. So if you just do your job, you get more kalim in order to continue doing your job. You get to eat the fruits of this world. I guess I'll give a bad mushal. I'm going to give a bad analogy. How many of you have ever heard of real wrestling? Not the fake kind, real wrestling. So a guy becomes a champion, right? He won his senior year NCAA championship. Way to go, Mazal tov. What happens if he just did the best he could do? He was the best one-time champion you could be. God will then give him a coaching job and a life in the wrestling world that he should keep giving back to the world from the wrestling vessels, type 1. Shaperes hein matan kalim nosafim lehavshar lehaisi bevodaso ukamo shekasu v'dasati matar tzechem meito v'chein lehefek imena zeichem v'mati v'lo kalim. So then if he's a coach and he's successful and he just has a life of wrestling. From the time he's 4 years old until he dies, he's in a world of wrestling. You all know those kind of people, type 1. Then we all know the other guy who was meant to be a legend wrestler in his own town. Then things fell out for him, got in trouble with the law, and never really did anything again. He was a one-shot wonder, and he served God, and that's it. Type 1, if you know this kind of guy. Hemshech mechtav Eliyahu, Rava me'atzmo yispalo sheyeh chocham v'ashir nene, u'peirusha toisfos al yedei zchus gadol mishtana hamazal. And Mechtav Eliyahu continues that Rava himself would pray that he should be wise and rich, and he was answered. And Upersho had Tosfos al yedei zchus gadol. The Tosfos gives the commentary that by great merit you can change Mazal. V'hinei Rava sha'amar bani chayim mezoni lav b'zchut Talia milsa. The big great principle with Mazal, as said by Rava, is that offspring and legacies and life experiences and sustenance are not in merit, but rather Mazal. Who atzmo made? Shu yispalo sheyeh chacham k'Rav Huna v'nene, sheyeh asher k'Rav Chizda v'nen. Ki al yedei etafil yachlu alos li'israimim li'isdavek od yaisar Hashem yisbarach al yedei zeh yeh roy l'siyata d'shmaya u'lekelim shu mavakesh v'hainu shekishu ha'taisar al yedei zchus gadol mishtana ha'mazal. So even though these things are in Mazal, meaning God just decrees and gives you, and it's your job to receive it through Mazal. If you pray, you may be answered, right? If you pray for a different set of vessels. You can go up and cling to God, and that makes that you are worthy and fitting for the help of heaven. You're really changing your essence. And the vessels that you request will come to you through a changed Mazal, through a great merit. So you're not just getting something the way you were. That's fantasia. You have to change your fundamental essence. And then you are fit to receive the new vessels. How do you change your essence? You have to get close to God. Changing to God will change your essence. And you get close to God through prayer. That's one way to motivate yourself to get close to God. Would you be afraid if you got close to God? Do you think that comes with a terror and a proper fear of the Lord? You better type 1 right now, because it does. Now, why do I explain it that way? Type 1, hello. Imagine that you're a healthy, young, 25-year-old. Type 1. Type 1. And you have a certain level of experiences in your life. Type 1. And among your experiences, you started drinking alcohol at a high rate. Type 1. And it turns out that your liver cannot handle alcohol. Type 1. Now, if you never would have drank alcohol, you would never have known your problem. Type 1. And when you started drinking in your early 20s, you came close to death. Type 1. Did that death experience scare the wits out of you? 1 or 2? Did your coming close to death scare you? 1 or 2? Hello. It scared you. So what happened afterwards? Did the doctor tell you that you can't drink anymore? 1 or 2? 1 or 2? Hello. So you got close to God, didn't you? By definition, a near-death experience is getting close to God. Now, you might not have initiated it, and if you wanted to initiate it, you should pray. But when you stop having alcohol in your life, are you going to change your ways? Are you going to stop going to the club? Are you going to stop self-medicating? Type 1. Therefore, the things that were given to you were vessels conducive for an alcohol lifestyle. Type 1. Even though you didn't drink till your 20s, you had the potential for alcoholism, so your vessels were related to drinking alcohol. Type 1. When you stop drinking, then the alcohol is no longer in your life. Type 1. So by definition, your vessels changed. Type 1. You receive a new Mazal. The kind of woman you can marry is no longer at the bar. The kind of kids that you will have are no longer attracted to the bar. The sustenance doesn't come from the bar. And through a great merit, you get different vessels and a different Mazal. Type 1. And that's where we will leave off for today. Thank you for listening. Be well.